Hello class. I want to apologize for the timing of this video. I know that week 11 has already passed, but some of you did express some interest in seeing a video on doing a try-catch loop and dealing with exceptions. So as you probably read in the book, a try-catch loop or a try-catch block is its main purpose is for error handling and exception handling. What we use it for in programming is when we're trying to run code that we're fairly confident is going to work, but a user input or some external influence could cause the code to throw a syntax error or a logical error. And so we put in a try-catch loop to make sure that we catch any errors that happen and then we handle those exceptions as we do it. So let's just take, for example, divide by zero. Divide by zero is a common error that can cause problems, and it's one that you will have to deal with in your assignment this week. So, for example, if I just create an integer value of x, and we'll set that equal to 3, an integer value of y, and we'll set that to 9, and then I try to take and create an integer value of z and make that equal y divided by x. So this code is going to execute just fine. I'll just go ahead and put a breakpoint in here, execute the code, and you'll see I'll get to my breakpoint. I'm going to go ahead and just step into that, and if I hover over this, z is going to equal 3 because 9 divided by 3 is 3. If I come in here and change x equal to 0 at some point and try to execute this code, you'll see that we come up with an error. Boom. It's going to give me an unhandled exception error, which I'm sure you've probably seen these already in your coding, and it's saying attempting to divide by 0. So what we can do to catch errors like that is use the try-catch block. So if I come up here, and let's just make a quick try-catch block, and we put the code that we want to execute inside the try statement. Technically, this really isn't a loop because it doesn't keep going over. I know I've said loop a couple of times, but you can think of it working similarly to a loop, where you have a statement here, in this case it's the try, and then it's going to execute this code in between there, in between the two brackets. This is technically called a try-catch block because this is a block of text. You're trying to execute the text inside this block, and if something happens, you're going to catch an error. So what we can do is we can put code inside of our catch loop to do something. So let's say we want to write this to, instead of setting it to an integer, we're going to do a console.writeLine. And we're going to try to write the output of that statement to the console window. If we come up with an error, we can write a different line to the console. So now, when I execute this code, you'll see I get the result of there was an error because we're trying to divide by 0. If I comment this out and run it, you'll see I get my code there because that executes correctly. There are fun things that you can do with the exceptions. You can actually get quite a bit of information off of it. If I just throw in a breakpoint here, hit the start. Okay, so now I'm actually inside my exception here. Oops. When you're writing a catch, you actually have to give your exception a name. So think of Just like you would declare any other variable, you're declaring a variable of exception. You're creating an exception object here is basically what you're doing. And I'm just going to name it EX, give it a name. So now when I start that, and that executes, if I hover over that EX, the object that I created with it, it will tell you what the error was, and it'll give you a bunch of different information. The divide by zero one is actually kind of boring. It doesn't provide a whole lot of information, but does give you some information about what's going on. If I wanted to catch multiple potential errors, not just the divide by zero one, and determine what they are and display that to the screen, I could write ex.message to the screen, and when I run that, you'll see it sends the attempted to divide by zero error message to the screen and tells me what exception it was that I was dealing with. You can also catch multiple types of exceptions. I can keep adding catches, and I can add a specific exception. So let's see if I can remember. I'll catch the divide by zero exception. Let's go ahead and comment that one out for now and do something. It does take the exceptions in a hierarchical order, so if you try to write a generic catch statement and then write more than one catch statement, you're going to run into problems. So we'll catch the specific one, and then we'll catch the generic. So now when I execute this, it still catches my divide by zero exception and not the other one. So this way, if you potentially are having more issues thrown than just a simple divide by zero exception, or more potential issues, you can handle them in different ways. So you're really doing your exception handling exactly how you want to do it. One of the other things that I asked you to do was actually, I realized that after much later in the week when I wrote the assignment, was I asked you to create a custom exception. I realized after I did that I was asking you to do something that we haven't really gone into yet, and that is use inheritance. So if you didn't understand how to do that, that's okay. I'm not going to count off for it in the assignment. But if we did want to create a custom exception, it's a very simple process, and you probably picked this up in the book because there's just really not a whole lot that you have to do with it. We're going to create a new class, and we're just going to call this my custom exception. And then what we need to have happen is we need to have this class, my custom exception, inherit from the exception class, and that will make it an exception. You can put some code in there, you can do some stuff. I think the book goes into how to do that. For the purpose of the assignment, you really didn't have to. You can just leave it as is, and that's fine. And we could catch that. We could add a catch to that here. So we could add a catch my custom exception. And we could handle that exception differently from other exceptions. You can add conditions into how to handle it and messages and whatnot, but for the scope of the assignment, we didn't really need to go into that. So I hope this quick tutorial on try catches and custom exceptions helps you. If you've been waiting on it to do the assignment, go ahead and do the assignment. I am going to be quickly working on trying to get the video for week 12 up. because there is some important stuff that we need to go over in that one. But if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email.